City.
All right, and so folks, we originally had asked Reverend Kiana Jones, who many of you may have seen on television, but maybe haven't had a chance to hear her at length. And it just turned out that although she thought she was going to be able to do it several days ago, something came up, and we're just really fortunate that Curtis is able to step right in. So let's just ask you why the Cop City, all the issues that you just mentioned, why do they mean so much to you?
So I am definitely a certified tree hugger. I've been passionate about the environment since I was very little. I'm a human being, and we live on a planet. And when you see your home being destroyed, you feel outrage. But also, I've definitely experienced a lot of racism in my time and had a lot of negative interactions with police. So it was just a perfect marriage of values of things that I've, been passionate about for a long time. Whereas when I heard that, they're trying to build a police training facility and they're going to chop down a very important forest and right in my backyard, it was like, okay, sign me up right now. That's how I got involved.
Okay, so let me just ask this question. I mean, one of the things, I think were you also at City Hall on Monday?
Yes, I was. I was there to provide my public comment, yes.
Okay, so we're going to get to that in a minute, but I wanted to ask you about this thing. So one of the things that has happened, even though this struggle initiated over 2+ years ago by folks here in the city, all different kinds of organizations, individuals, what has come to fruition now, as I think as a device to make it seem as though the struggle against Cop City is something else, is that the media, the politicians have started characterizing the opponents as being, quote, outside agitators, close quote, which is a phrase for those of us that are, can remember the Jim Crow era of the segregationists who fought tooth and nail and gun and noose against any changes in the kind of apartheid system that existed here. So what would you say to this outside agitator baiting? And then more importantly, why is this struggle, in fact, national and international struggle?
Yeah, so the outside agitator narrative, as you mentioned, definitely does come from the Jim Crow apartheid era. But it's also done to justify some of the heavy-handed domestic terrorism charges that have been placed upon nonviolent demonstrators. So if you can frame, if you can have a narrative that frames people who come down who are rightfully concerned about police violence, about the militarization of police, about police having a record year of police killings in 2022. And you can frame those people as being just people who are just out-of-state rabble-rousers, then that kind of justifies you applying domestic terrorism charges on them. It was also recently revealed right after the raid that took place after I think some of the police buildings got burned down. I think during the week of action in March, that the Atlanta police actually was selectively arresting people. So people who had an out-of-state license, they were arrested. But the people who were in-state or who were local, they were let go. So it was very much kind of like a propaganda term to justify this draconian domestic terrorism charge. Mm-hmm. So not only does it harken back to some of the old yesteryears of Jim Crow, but it harkens back to the modern day where people who do engage in civil disobedience to protect the environment, to protect animal rights, to protect even abortion rights, they are labeled terrorists and are criminalized and charged as such. But this issue with Cop City, it definitely is an international issue because, number one, they're going to be training, police officers from Israel, the apartheid state of Israel, right here in Atlanta. There's going to be a mutual exchange where Israeli police forces, who are engaged in ongoing repression, and you can even say genocide against Palestinians, will be learning militarized police tactics to repress Palestinians, and they will also be teaching those same tactics to police forces here nationally to to repress Black and brown communities. So the issue, so that's a huge issue within itself, but also climate change is an international issue. The acidification of the oceans, the rapid deforestation of critical vital ecosystems. These are all, global issues. And even furthermore, the Atlanta Police Foundation admits that they will be training 43% of the officers that will be trained at this facility will be from out of state. So again, it's going to be like a police conference where they're going to be exchanging all types of ideas, and the ideas they will be exchanging will be how to oppress and repress Black and brown communities.
If I could just throw something in, one of the things is that the so-called plans for Cop City keep shifting, at least on paper. So everybody should know that the original plan was for multiple gun ranges, not one, multiple gun ranges, for places for practicing with explosives and chemical weaponry. And the whole reason it's called Cop City is because the original plan called for a mock city, which was going to include apartment buildings, a gas station, and assorted other stores, etc., where police were going to be trained in literally urban warfare, how to break down doors, how to throw explosives, how to use these militarized tanks and other kinds of vehicles, heavy weapon, There was a SWAT when I came to City Council for the meeting this past a week ago Monday. There was a big SWAT vehicle on the corner. Talk to me about that. Anyway, Paul has the next question.
Hi, Curtis. This is Paul. Thank you for joining us. The murder of Tortuguita and the destruction of acres of trees that has already happened. Certainly they thought this was going to be using repression as they have in the past would derail the movement. But instead, we're seeing bigger turnouts, for example, at the city council meeting. Can you explain what you think is happening with the movement at this point and why the numbers are continuing to grow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's definitely been an evolution from when the constituents of the city first voiced their opposition. Keep in mind, back in August of 2021, you had 17 hours of public comment for the lease to build Cop City, and 70% of constituents opposed that. And then after that, you had people who actually were willing to put their bodies on the line, who actually went into the forest and turned it into a sacred grounds where people were able to organize with each other. All types of beautiful activities happened, for about almost a year, and it was fascinating because I think even in the local media they never had really seen the type of civil disobedience in a long time against a police training facility. And you had outlets from Rolling Stone to Vice News. I mean, all different types of outlets just covering like, hey, there's this group of anarchists, of environmentalists, of socialists, of just racial justice act organizers who have literally like turned the forest into their home and are demanding that it be protected. And then around 2022, that's when some of the language of domestic terrorists was used, because the police had continued to escalate their raids even before Tortuguita had been killed. And it was predicted, I think, by one of the attorneys from the Atlanta Solidarity Fund that, these militarized raids that are occurring will lead to eventual death, which it did in January. And right after January, when Tortuguita was murdered, that was like that was like a tinderbox, which was already kind of brewing and just totally exploded. And it got international attention. It got attention from Congress people, and it became like a worldwide issue. And I think, where the movement is at now is that, we're continuing to put pressure on these public officials to do what's right, to listen to their constituents, to not listen to police unions and to corporations, and to make everything that Atlanta supposedly stands for actual public policy. Because if you say you care about Black Lives Matter, if you say you are LGBTQ friendly place to live, and you can't support the murder of non-binary queer environmentalist Tortuguita in the forest, and you can't justify bulldozing 85 acres, upwards to 400 acres of forest in a working class black community. It's not even actually located in the city of Atlanta. It's actually located in DeKalb County. So we're just going to continue to hold their feet to the fire. So that's where the movement has gone.
Thank you for that.
So let's talk a little bit about last Monday. Now, when I came back, I had to leave the city council meeting actually after, all the preliminary picture-taking, proclamation-giving, standing up there by various politicians, burnishing their own records, I guess, as being for the people. And then so the public comment didn't start until after 2:15, 2:20 or something like that, which is about when I had to go. And as I came out, there still was this line of people all over who were trying to get in because there were all kinds of empty seats in the chamber, and they weren't letting people in to fill empty seats for one. But it's been reported that there were 280 plus people who actually made their way through the atrium, up the balcony, around, and got to actually the table where you sign in. I don't know if everybody knows the process that you have to sign in to say that you want to speak, and then you get 2 minutes. So there were 280 of them. And when I went out, there were hundreds who were still there who would now not being allowed to speak anymore because it closed at 1 o'clock. The list closed at 1 o'clock. So you were there. So could you talk a little bit about maybe if there were some special people that you heard that you would want the rest of us, and it is all available, by the way. It was recorded. You will hear some remarkable, and you did on WRFG on Christopher's show this past Friday, remarkable speeches. But were there some that you would like to tell our audience about?
Yeah, the one that really stood out to me was the father of Jimmy Atchison. He was murdered by the Atlanta police with his hands up.
Mr. Hill's been on this program.
Yes, and I felt like his speech was probably it was the most important one because he was speaking as a father, and Atlanta oftentimes is Atlanta engages in a lot of performative politics. So he mentioned how City Council had presented, I think, a proclamation to him for victims of gun violence. So it was kind of like vague, like just like some random,
right.
gun violence instead of
police violence.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, or lynching. So yeah, they kind of made it real kind of vague, like, oh, this is just regular, gun violence. And he stated how Atlanta has, they just continue to deny him and his family justice, and they want to do all these performative gestures about, okay, we're going to acknowledge, that your son was killed unjustifiably, so we're not gonna, acknowledge that this was a police violence that we've done nothing about. We're just going to acknowledge this as some sort of vague gun violence issue. So yeah, he was like, this is horrible that you continue to do this, and now you want to build Cop City off of the backs of my family, and I'm returning your proclamation, which to me was very similar to what Angela Davis did about how they on Walter Rodney Day they issued her a proclamation, saying they were going to make an Angela Davis Day, and she in opposition to Cop City, in solidarity with the organizers, she returned proclamation back. So I really thought his speech was probably some of the most poignant that really resonated with me.
Curtis, could you talk a little bit about the pressure and the organizing that's going on now towards university presidents and corporations locally and across the country in terms of their involvement with the Atlanta Police Foundation?
Yeah, so that has been taking place for several months now. It has involved virtually all the universities here in Atlanta, from Emory to Georgia Tech to Georgia State, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta. They've all been involved in pressuring their school officials to denounce Cop City, to step down from the Atlanta Progress Committee that's been, heavily involved in the planning and coordination of Cop City, and also the Atlanta Police Foundation. So there have been protests organized by Georgia Tech students, by students at Emory, and students at Georgia State that have been, violently opposed by the police. Police coming out there with big guns to voice how they do not want their names to be involved with this. But also because Cop City is being funded by multinational corporations, those officials, pretty much any college student that works that goes to school where their school officials have either business with, for example, Bank of America, who's a major funder of Cop City, or the Atlanta Police Foundation. Those individuals, those institutions have been held to account and being told to not support Cop City, to divest from the Atlanta Police Foundation, and to publicly, because a lot of these schools, they have teachings on diversity. They claim Black Lives Matter, Queer Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter. They kind of make all these kind of vague proclamations, but oftentimes, they'll then turn their back on the students and be involved with Bank of America as far as having a close banking relationship with them, or being involved with the Atlanta Police Foundation. So it definitely has been, even students, I think, at Howard University, when President Biden spoke when President Biden recently spoke at the commencement for Howard University, which is located in Washington, D.C. It's a historically black college. The students protested his commencement speech, and when they issued a statement of protest, they mentioned the murder of Tortuguita and the continued murders of black and brown people, this past year, and just how basically we're not getting any justice under this current presidential administration. So this has definitely become definitely a student-led movement and a young people-led movement, and that's been very, very, very inspiring.
So where we are is, when you mentioned 17 hours of comment a year plus ago, that was when the city council voted to assign the lease with the Atlanta Police Foundation for so many acres and the plan to build Cop City. And that was during COVID. And so that was 17 hours of taped. That wasn't in person. Mm-hmm. So it has been said by many, folks who know the history of City Hall, that what happened this past Monday, with hundreds of people showing up, but only 280 being able to sign up, that was the largest turnout ever for a public comment on any issue. And that was the determination that the discussion about the city of Atlanta using taxpayer dollars, $33.5 million is what the figure I heard, to go ahead and get that secured now, because otherwise the foundation, the police foundation, has not raised sufficient money to be able to get the loan they need to start construction. Am I correct? So in other words, the city council will actually bail out Cop City by passing this law or passing this budget. So there's a couple more chances for people to voice their opposition to this. So two things. Is that correct about how, when the thing was first declared by the Atlanta Police Foundation, they were all about, we've got $90 billion, yada, yada. And now all of a sudden, if Atlanta taxpayers don't come up with $33.5 million, it might all be for naught, huh?
Correct. Yes. So it's definitely already exceeded the initial cost estimates in the Atlanta Police Foundation due to all the organizing and international outcry that has gotten, particularly after Tortuguita's murder. is having a hard time getting their corporate funders to raise money. And there's even been discussions about, using municipal bonds to raise some of the funds. But yes, pretty much the city council now is determining whether to approve this additional funding. But even with additional funding, it's still not, that's still not going to be enough for the total project to be completed. So, so it could be another, there could be approval for 33 million now, and then, several months from now, they come back to the city and say we need more money, and we need to raise it through municipal bonds or what have you. So yes, with this upcoming vote, if the city council, which it is not guaranteed, because there are close to about only maybe 8 votes that are needed for the project to be denied. And not every single city council member is on board. There are about 4 who are solidly against it, maybe about 6 who are for it. So, it's definitely going to be a toss-up. But yeah, if they do not get those funds from city council, then the project is going to be very difficult for the project to move forward. For them to, because they are not raising the money the Atlanta Police Foundation is not raising the money to complete it on, they have definitely not raised $60 million for them to complete their portion of it.
Curtis, I have a question that we've talked a lot about here regarding Cop City, and that's the issue of the Atlanta Way, which people go back to as far as 1906 and the Atlanta race massacre, that a decision was made by elites in both the white and black community to come together and basically serve the interests of the white business establishment, that if we could cooperate, things could run much more smoothly. And I've lived here since 1981, and I think for the first time I'm seeing the Atlanta Way exposed and under attack in a way that I've never seen. And I'm wondering what your sense is looking ahead for the movement of people for equity and justice against all the forms of oppression that you've named, this obstacle, this problem that we've had. What is your sense of how we can move forward regarding it?
Yeah, how we can move forward with regarding the Atlanta Way, or
right, and building opposition to it, and building a people's movement.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, this Cop City project is definitely an extension of the Atlanta Way. There's been many prominent civil rights leaders who have supported this. Of course, the corporate community has definitely heavily been involved, and I think even Mayor Dickens, when he announced, I believe, he was doing like a PR event to announce, I think, the stakeholders committee literally right after Tortuguita's autopsy was released, where it was announced that there was no gunpowder found on their hands, and they had nearly 56 bullet wounds on their bodies. It was like all black audience of people from including, I think, former mayor Andrew Young. But a recent study came out which demonstrated that close to about nearly about 40, nearly half of the city opposes this. And majority of the black community opposes this. And I think what's happened is that, the illusion of racial progress has definitely kind of eroded this kind of alliance between black and white elites. I think that the public lynching of George Floyd in 2020, definitely, and right after that, the public lynching of Rashad Brooks has kind of, people have to be able to see that there definitely is a class divide between many in the black community. Between some who are political economic elites who want this whole illusion of progress in Atlanta being a city that's too busy to hate. They want to kind of continue to hold on to that, and just the reality of many people in the city who are seeing their rents go up, who are being gentrified out the city, who are, living in a heavily red state and, having their voting rights eroded, having their abortion rights eroded, just having all pretenses of democracies eroded. And the only response that a lot of these black elites have had has been, for more funding for police. So, and many in the black community don't want that. We want public safety. We want investments in green spaces and lead cleanups and public housing. So we want those community investments, but we don't want more funding for policing. That has definitely been eroded, and I think it's been probably on the decline since the late 1960s, because I think you mentioned you've been in Atlanta in 1981, and right in 1981, I think from 79 up until 81, you had literally the Klan literally waging genocide on black boys and girls here in the city, known as the Atlanta child murders.
Right.
And that right then and there, caused a big kind of schism. Like, okay, we elected black leadership, Maynard Jackson at the time, and we have a black police chief. But you literally have Klansmen trying to start a race war and just murdering children at will, and nothing's being done about it.
Right.
So I think, all those events, have just led to like, okay, this is, this alliance is not going to work for us. We particularly poor and working class black folks, we've gotten the short end of the stick.
Atlanta being known as number one in the country for income inequality.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all those things, and just, and also just continued racist backlash we've seen after the 2020 election, and, and the banning of books in schools, all those things have kind of shown that, okay, a lot of this, a lot of these alliances and backdoor dealings, by some of the black elite, it's not working for all of us. So we're gonna stop it and oppose it.
All right, we have run out of time, and this has been a great interview. Thank you so much, Curtis. So two things real quick. Could you mention that there are some upcoming meetings of council committees and the council itself, the dates of those, and then lastly, for more information, where would people potentially want to be able to go?
Yes, so there is up on June 5th. There is upcoming a city council hearing on this proposal for the Atlanta City Council to devote $33.5 million to the building of Cop City. They are welcoming public comment. That public comment, public comment period starts at I believe at 11 a.m. And I think goes until the public comments, until people actually start speaking, which is roughly around 1 p.m. And that will be at Atlanta City Council, or I'm sorry, Atlanta City Hall. And I'm a member of Community Movement Builders, so you can definitely check out the website for Community Movement Builders is www.communitymovementbuilders.org. And there's also another website called stopcopcitysolidarity.org, and that's where people can learn more information.
Thank you so very, very much. And then we have to go for today. Thank you, listeners. I hope you found the program interesting, and make sure that you get